I never thought my life would take such a drastic turn, but looking back, the signs were there. My name is Jake, and I was married to Lisa for almost 7 years. We had built a life together in a cozy little suburb, complete with a nice house, 2 dogs, and dreams of starting a family. But over the last few months, something had changed. It started with the little things, like how she began locking the bathroom door whenever she showered. At first, I thought she just wanted some privacy, and honestly, I could respect that. Everyone needs their space, right? But as the days turned into weeks, I started to feel a nagging sense of unease. I remember the first time I noticed her behavior shift. Lisa was usually open about her day, sharing snippets of her work life as a marketing manager. But then she started coming home late more frequently, claiming she was busy with a project. She was vague, and the more I pressed, the more irritated she seemed to get. "I just need some time to myself, Jake," she snapped one night, tossing her hair over her shoulder, her eyes hardening. I felt a sting at her tone but dismissed it. Maybe I was being overdramatic, a classic case of a guy being paranoid. But as weeks passed, the bathroom door became a fortress. I'd hear her humming to herself while in there, and each time I felt a strange mix of confusion and suspicion. I had no reason to distrust her, but the nagging thought wouldn't leave my mind. I started to notice other things too. Her phone was always face down, and she would jump every time I walked into the room while she was texting. I found myself doing things I never imagined I would, like checking her phone when she left it unattended. The guilt of invading her privacy hung over me, but the need for answers outweighed it. Then came that fateful Saturday. It was a lazy day. I was lounging on the couch, flipping through channels when I heard her phone buzz on the kitchen counter. I glanced over, and for just a moment I hesitated. Should I really look? But then curiosity got the better of me. I picked up her phone to see a message from an unknown number. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Don't keep me waiting." My heart sank. I felt the room spin around me. I figured I had to confront her, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I needed more evidence before I made a fool of myself. Later that night, Lisa came out of the shower wrapping herself in a towel, her wet hair framing her face. "Hey, I think I'm going to grab some dinner with Sarah. Want anything?" she asked nonchalantly. Sarah was a friend from her office, someone I had met just once. I could feel my pulse quickening. "You mean a Saturday night dinner, just you and Sarah?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She nodded, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. "Yeah, we haven't had a proper girls' night in a while." I forced a smile, but it felt like the world was crumbling around me. I watched her get ready, applying her makeup with good intentions while I stewed in my own thoughts. The more I thought about it, the more the pieces started to fall into place. I had slipped into a pattern of denial, believing her excuses were valid. But now, faced with the evidence, I felt anger bubbling under the surface. When she finally left for dinner, I stayed behind, pacing the living room. I decided to do what I had dreaded, look for more proof. I rummaged through her things, going through her purse, her laptop, even the laundry basket. It felt wrong, but I was desperate. That's when I came across her planner tucked away in a drawer. Flipping through the pages, everything spiraled out of control. There it was, written in her neat handwriting, dates, times, and a name: Mark. My heart raced as I read the entries, the reality of her betrayal crashing over me like a wave. That was it. I had to confront her. No more waiting, no more denial. I was ready to face the truth, no matter how painful it would be. Little did I know that confrontation would change everything. Now I'm stuck here, trying to figure out how to piece my life back together after unearthing this mess. What do I even do next? The confrontation loomed over me like a storm cloud, darkening my thoughts and weighing heavily on my chest. I spent the rest of that evening pacing the house, my mind racing with a whirlwind of emotions: anger, betrayal, sadness, and disbelief. It was hard to fathom that the woman I loved, the woman I built a life with, could so easily betray me. But I had to confront her. I needed answers, and I needed them now. Lisa came home later than usual, her laughter filling the house as she walked in. I could hear her chatting with Sarah as she approached the door, her voice light and carefree. It made my stomach churn. How could she act so normal after what I had discovered? She stepped inside, her cheeks flushed from the excitement of the night, and when she saw me sitting on the couch, her smile faltered. "Jake, you okay?" she asked, her tone shifting as she read the tension in the room. I took a deep breath, forcing down the rising anger that threatened to spill over. "We need to talk," I said, keeping my voice steady, though it felt like my heart was pounding out of my chest. She hesitated, her eyes darting to the floor before locking onto mine. "What about?" she asked, feigning innocence, but I could see the glimmer of unease in her eyes. "Don't play dumb, Lisa. I found your planner. I know about Mark," I said, the words spilling out of my mouth before I could stop myself. The air turned electric and her expression shifted from confusion to something else, fear, maybe even guilt. She opened her mouth to respond, but I didn't let her get a word in. "I read the messages too. What the hell is going on?" Her facade crumbled as she sunk down onto the couch across from me, her hands trembling. "Jake, it's not what you think," she started, her voice shaky. I felt like I was watching a terrible play unfold, the kind where you know the ending is going to leave you devastated. She had always been good at spinning stories, weaving outlandish excuses that somehow felt plausible in the moment. "Mark is just a coworker. We've been working late together and I didn't want to burden you with my work issues." "Don't give me that crap, Lisa. You think I'm stupid." I found plans for dinners, dates, and I struggled to keep my voice steady, but my words were laced with fury. "You were seeing him behind my back, while pretending everything was fine between us." She took a deep breath, trying to compose herself, but I could see the cracks forming. "Jake, I swear it's not what you think. I was just confused. I thought we were drifting apart and Mark was there. It was just a few kisses, nothing more." Her voice cracked and she leaned forward, desperately reaching for my hand, but I pulled it away, the betrayal cutting too deep. I stood up, feeling like a volcano about to erupt. "Just a few kisses. You don't get to minimize this. You've been lying to me, and for what? Because you were confused. You don't just throw away 7 years for some fling." I felt my heart racing, breathing heavy as a mix of anger and heartbreak welled up inside me. "Jake, please, I love you. I didn't want to hurt you," she pleaded, tears glistening in her eyes. But her words felt hollow, like a Band-Aid over a gaping wound. I wanted to believe her, to think that this was just a momentary lapse, but the evidence was glaring. "I can't believe anything you say right now," I snapped, my voice trembling with emotion. "You've made your choice, Lisa. You went behind my back and you think a few tears can fix this." I felt like I was losing a piece of myself with every word that left my mouth, but there was no other choice. I needed to stand my ground. The next few minutes were a whirlwind of accusations and half-hearted apologies. Lisa tried to explain how things had spiraled out of control, how she felt neglected, and how the thrill of attention from Mark had blinded her. But it all felt like a twisted justification for her actions, and I was left grappling with the reality of the situation. As I stood there, watching the woman I thought I knew unravel before me, I felt a sense of rage mixed with the profound sadness washing over me. How could someone I trusted betray me so completely? My mind raced with memories of our life together, the laughter, the late-night talks, and the plans we had for our future. All of it felt tainted now, the love we built crumbling under the weight of her deceit. I needed to step away, to process what had just happened. "I can't do this right now. I need time," I said, my voice strained. I walked past her, leaving her sitting on the couch, the reality of our shattered marriage hanging heavily in the air. I don't know how long I stood outside on the porch, staring into the darkness, my mind a storm of chaos. I felt betrayed and lost, but more than anything, I felt angry. Angry at her for lying, angry at myself for not seeing the signs, and angry at the whole situation that had turned my life upside down. What was I going to do now? How was I going to move forward from this? The questions hung like a heavy fog around me, and the answers felt miles away. I realized I had a decision to make, and it wouldn't come easy. I spent that night tossing and turning, my mind racing with thoughts of betrayal and confusion. The bed felt cold and empty without Lisa beside me, and I couldn't shake the feeling of disillusionment that settled deep in my bones. I couldn't believe I was lying in the same space where we had shared so many dreams, remaining blissfully unaware of her infidelity. The realization made me feel sick, yet I couldn't help but replay the events of the night over and over again, desperately searching for answers. Morning came too soon, and I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the sun streaming through the curtains. It felt like a cruel joke. The world was still turning while mine had come to a screeching halt. I could hear Lisa moving around the house, the sounds of her morning routine piercing through my heavy silence. Part of me wanted to confront her again, to demand more answers, but another part of me knew I needed to gather my thoughts before diving into that emotional abyss. After a long internal battle, I finally mustered the courage to face her. I found her in the kitchen, pouring a cup of coffee, and she looked up at me, her eyes filled with a mix of hope and guilt. "Jake, can we talk?" she asked softly, her voice trembling. I didn't respond at first, just stood there, my arms crossed over my chest, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on me. "Look, I know we've had a rough night and I don't expect you to forgive me right away," she began, her words tumbling out in a rush. "But I want you to understand why I did it. I felt so alone, Jake. We were growing apart and Mark, he was just there, giving me attention when I needed it the most." I scoffed, frustration boiling up inside me. "So, you decided to cheat instead of talking to me. You could have come to me, Lisa. We could have worked on this together." I felt my heart racing and I took a step closer to her, desperate to make her see how her actions had shattered everything we had built. I know, I messed up, okay, but it didn't mean anything, it was just a stupid mistake," she pleaded, her voice rising with desperation. "I love you, Jake, I'm so sorry." "Love? You call this love? You betrayed me with someone else behind my back and now you want to throw around the word love." I shook my head in disbelief, struggling to process the words spilling from her mouth. Did she genuinely think an apology would magically fix everything? "Please, just listen to me for a second," she implored, reaching out to touch my arm, but I recoiled, pushing her hand away. "I was scared and I thought I was losing you. I don't want to lose you. Scared, you thought that cheating was the answer. You could have talked to me, Lisa." My voice cracked and I felt tears stinging my eyes. The emotional turmoil was overwhelming, and I was caught between wanting to believe her and needing to protect myself from further pain. "You've made a choice. You've chosen him over me, and now I don't know how to move forward." She looked at me, her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't feel sympathy. I felt anger mixing with the raw hurt. "I need space," I finally said, the words spilling out like a sigh of resignation. "I can't think straight with you here." I turned and walked out of the kitchen, feeling the weight of her gaze on my back. The decision felt monumental, but I knew I couldn't stay in that house, living in a constant state of betrayal and deception. I needed to clear my head to think about the next steps. I spent the day running mindless errands, trying to distract myself from the reality of my situation. I filled my car with gas, bought groceries I didn't need, and even stopped by the local hardware store to pick up random items. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't escape the nagging thoughts in my head. What should I do? Should I confront Mark? Should I try to work things out with Lisa, or was this a definitive end to our marriage? When I finally returned home that evening, the atmosphere felt thick with tension. Lisa was sitting on the couch, her face pale and drawn, as if she had aged a decade overnight. I could see she had been crying. "Jake, please," she said as I walked in. "I've been thinking and I realize how stupid I was. I'll do anything to make this right. I'll even go to couples therapy if that's what you want." Her words hung in the air like a fragile thread, and for a moment I felt a flicker of hope. Could we really salvage this? Could therapy bring us back to where we used to be? But deep down I knew it wouldn't be that simple. Trust was shattered and I wasn't sure if it could ever be rebuilt. "Let's just take a moment," I said, my voice low and steady. "I need to figure out what I want moving forward. I can't promise anything right now." I felt the weight of her gaze, her eyes pleading for understanding and forgiveness, but I couldn't bring myself to meet it. I retreated to the bedroom, shutting the door behind me. The silence was deafening and I fell onto the bed, feeling the tears I had held back finally spill over. I didn't want to feel this way. I didn't want to be angry or hurt. But I couldn't allow myself to forget what had happened. The night stretched on, filled with dark thoughts and restless tossing. I was a man torn between love and betrayal, longing for clarity in a storm of confusion. I had to decide what my next steps would be. whether to confront Lisa about her choices again, or whether to reclaim my own life outside of this painful reality. I realized I was at a crossroads, and whichever path I chose would change everything. I had to find a way to navigate through the chaos, and I knew it wouldn't be easy. The road ahead was uncertain, but I had to start somewhere. The days that followed blurred together, each one filled with a mix of tension and uncertainty. I was living in a limbo, trapped between the memories of what Lisa and I had shared and the harsh reality of her betrayal. We walked around the house like strangers, a palpable distance between us, and every time I caught her gaze, I felt a mix of anger and heartbreak. I couldn't shake the feeling that our life together had been irreparably tainted. It was during one of those suffocating evenings that I decided I needed to confront Mark. I wasn't entirely sure what I would say, but I knew I couldn't let this go without standing up for myself. My emotions were a tangled mess. Part of me was terrified of what I might find, but another part felt the fierce need to reclaim my dignity and honor. I managed to track down Mark's phone number through some sleuthing on social media, and as I sat in my car, outside his apartment complex, I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. My hands trembled slightly on the steering wheel and doubt crept in. What was I even doing? Would confronting him achieve anything, or would it just add more fuel to the fire? But I couldn't back down now. I needed to face him. Taking a deep breath, I stepped out of the car and walked toward the entrance of the building. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead as I made my way up to his floor. It felt surreal, like I was in some twisted movie where everything was about to spiral out of control. I reached his door, hesitating for a moment before knocking firmly. When he opened the door, I was taken aback. Mark was tall, with a disheveled look that screamed I just rolled out of bed. He wore a faded t-shirt and sweatpants, and the surprise on his face quickly morphed into confusion. "Can I help you?" he asked, narrowing his eyes as if he were trying to place me. "I'm Jake," I said, my voice steady, even though my heart raced. "Lisa's husband." His expression changed instantly, and for a brief moment I could see the realization hit him. "Oh," he said, stepping back slightly. Come in." I followed him inside, the tension thick in the air. The apartment was small and cluttered, filled with empty pizza boxes and leftover takeout containers. It was a stark contrast to the life Lisa and I had built together, clean, organized, and filled with memories. I felt a wave of anger surge through me as I took it all in. "Listen, I don't want to make this a scene," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, "but we need to talk about Lisa, about what's been going on." Mark shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting away from mine. "I didn't know you were going to come here," he mumbled, running a hand through his hair. "I didn't mean to. I mean, it was just supposed to be a fling." "A fling?" I echoed, my voice rising. "You think this is a joke? You've been sleeping with my wife. You're the reason my marriage is falling apart." I felt the heat rise in my cheeks as the anger bubbled to the surface. "Look, man, it wasn't meant to go this far," he said defensively, holding up his hands. "We were just having fun. I didn't know she was married, at least not until a few weeks in." The admission hit me like a punch to the gut. "So you didn't care, you just went along with it." I couldn't believe the nerve of this guy. "Do you even understand how much pain you've caused?" "I didn't mean to. Lisa and I, it just happened. I didn't want to hurt anyone." Mark's voice wavered, and for a moment I could see the guilt flash across his face, but it was too late for that. "I don't care about your excuses," I snapped. "I want you to understand the damage you've done. You've taken something precious from me, and I'll be damned if I let you walk away without understanding the consequences." He shifted uneasily, clearly uncomfortable with the confrontation. "Look, I'm really sorry. I didn't know it was going to turn into this. I thought she was just unhappy and looking for something more." "More what? More lies, more deceit?" I interrupted, my frustration boiling over. "You think this was just a game? You're messing with real lives here." I took a deep breath, trying to control my rising anger. "You need to leave her alone. She's my wife, and I'm going to fight for my marriage." Mark nodded slowly, almost like he was coming to terms with the gravity of the situation. "Okay, I'll back off. I won't contact her again. But you need to understand, she was looking for something that you weren't giving her. You might want to think about that." His words hit me hard. I hadn't considered that aspect of this mess. the idea that our marriage might have had cracks that led Lisa to seek solace in someone else. But that didn't justify her actions. "I'll deal with Lisa. You just need to stay out of it," I replied, my voice firm. After a few more heated exchanges, I left Mark's apartment feeling conflicted. Part of me wanted to punch him, to make him feel the pain he had caused, but another part of me recognized that he was just a symptom of the deeper issues in my marriage. He wasn't the sole perpetrator. Lisa was the one who had chosen to betray my trust. As I drove home, I realized that confronting Mark hadn't given me the closure I sought. It had only opened up more questions and laid bare the cracks in my relationship with Lisa. I needed to talk to her again. This time, I needed to be honest about how her actions had affected me and what our future might hold. When I arrived home, the atmosphere was still thick with tension. Lisa was sitting on the couch, her expression unreadable as she waited for my return. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation we had to have. We needed to face the truth together, no more lies or half-hearted apologies. It was time to dig into the heart of the matter and figure out if there was any way to save what was left of our marriage. "Lisa, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady but laced with emotion. "It's time to get everything out in the open." Lisa looked up at me, her expression a mix of anxiety and hope. My heart raced as I stepped into the living room, the weight of our strained relationship pressing down on both of us. I could see that she had been stewing in her own thoughts just like I had, and we were both clinging to the idea that maybe, just maybe, we could still salvage this. "Please have a seat," I said, gesturing to the couch. I needed to set a tone for this conversation, create a space where we could be honest without fear of escalation. She hesitated for a moment before sitting down, her eyes never leaving mine. I got to talk to Mark," I began, watching her reaction closely. The color drained from her face, and I felt a pang of sorrow for the hurt that was about to unfold. I confronted him. "He knows I'm onto what's been happening." Her breath hitched as she processed my words, her hands fidgeting nervously in her lap. "What did he say?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Honestly, it doesn't matter what he said. What matters is that you need to understand how much pain this has caused me. This isn't just some fling. This is our life, our marriage, and you threw it away. You need to take responsibility for your choices," said, my voice steady but laced with emotion. "I know, Jake, I'm so sorry," she blurted out, tears brimming in her eyes. "I made a mistake. I should have talked to you about how I was feeling instead of running to someone else. I just felt so alone." "Alone," I echoed, my heart aching. "You say you felt alone, but did you ever stop to think about how lonely I felt? You kept shutting me out, locking the bathroom door, acting like everything was fine when it was. I wanted to be there for you, Lisa. Instead, you pushed me away and sought comfort in another man." "I was scared," she exclaimed, her voice rising again, frustration mingling with desperation. "I didn't know how to talk to you about it. I thought I was losing you, and when Mark showed me attention, it felt validating. It was stupid, I know, but that initial thrill, it clouded my judgment." "Thrill?" I repeated, my disbelief evident. "You thought a thrill was worth throwing away everything we built together, worth risking our future." I took a moment, letting the sadness wash over me. "I'm not saying we're perfect. We've had our struggles, but I would have fought for us if you'd just been honest." Her shoulders slumped and she looked down, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I know I've hurt you and I've been selfish. I never wanted to destroy our marriage. I didn't know how to handle my feelings. I thought I could manage it without dragging you into my mess." "Manage it," I replied, my voice softening. "By cheating on me. Lisa, I can't even begin to express how much that hurts. I feel betrayed, and it's going to take time to heal from this. You need to realize the gravity of what you did." "I do realize it," she said, her voice cracking. "I regret it every single day. I don't want to lose you, Jake. I know I've made a terrible mistake, but I want to fix it. I'll do whatever it takes to make it right." The intensity of her words hung in the air, and I struggled with the conflicting emotions. Part of me wanted to believe her, to hope that we could work through this together. But another part felt a deep sense of betrayal that was hard to ignore. "What does that even mean, Lisa? What does it look like to fix this? We can't just pretend it didn't happen." "I'm willing to go to therapy," she said, her voice earnest. "I want us to work through this with a professional. I want to figure out how we got here and how we can heal. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I want to show you that I'm committed to making things right." Her willingness to seek help struck a chord within me. I knew that therapy could help us navigate this mess, but the road ahead would be bumpy. "It's not going to be easy, Lisa. Trust is broken, and it's not something that can be easily repaired. I won't be able to forget what happened." "I know," she whispered, her vulnerability palpable, "but I'm willing to put in the work if you are. I love you and I want to fight for us. I'll do anything to regain your trust." Her words hung in the air like a lifeline, and for the first time I felt a flicker of hope. It wasn't going to be a quick fix, but maybe, just maybe, we could find a way back to each other. "I'm willing to try, but I need time," I said cautiously. "I need to see that you're serious about this." "Thank you," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "I promise you won't regret it. I'll show you that I can be the wife you deserve." We talked deep into the night, laying bare our fears and vulnerabilities. It was raw and painful, but it was also cathartic. I could see her sincerity, the remorse etched across her face, and for the first time I felt a glimmer of hope that we could navigate this together. As the night wore on, I realized that this was just the beginning of a long journey. The road ahead would be filled with challenges, but I was willing to try if she was too. We had a long way to go, but at least we were both ready to face the storm together. No matter what happened next, I knew one thing for sure. I wouldn't allow myself to be a doormat. I would stand my ground and set boundaries. This was an opportunity for both of us to grow, to rebuild our marriage on a foundation of honesty and understanding. I still had a long way to go before I could fully trust her again, but I was willing to take that chance. As I lay in bed that night, I felt a mix of exhaustion and resolve. Whatever the future held, I was ready to face it head on. Together we would navigate this complicated path, and I hoped, against all odds, we could emerge stronger than we had been before. The weeks following our intense conversation marked a new phase in our relationship, a phase filled with both hope and uncertainty. Lisa and I decided to commit to couples therapy, a decision that terrified me but also filled me with a glimmer of hope. It was the first step in addressing the rift between us, and I needed to believe that it could lead us back to a healthier version of our marriage. Our first session was nerve-wracking. We sat in the therapist's office, both of us fidgeting in our seats, the air thick with unspoken emotions. The therapist, an empathetic woman named Dr. Harris, encouraged us to share our feelings openly. I was honest about my anger and hurt, and Lisa expressed her remorse and desire to mend the broken trust. It felt like we were peeling back layers of pain that had built up over time, exposing raw wounds we'd both ignored. As the sessions progressed, we began to understand the underlying issues that had contributed to Lisa's infidelity. We had both been caught in a cycle of miscommunication and unmet needs. I had been so focused on work and daily responsibilities that I hadn't noticed how disconnected we'd become. Lisa's feelings of loneliness had pushed her towards Mark, and while that didn't justify her actions, it helped me understand her mindset. One of the most powerful moments came when Lisa shared a fear she had been harboring. "I thought I was losing you, Jake. I felt like I was fighting for your attention, and it made me feel invisible," she admitted, her voice trembling. Hearing her vulnerability was painful yet eye-opening. I had never realized how my own preoccupations had pushed her away, and it was a wake-up call that made me examine my own behaviors. In the following weeks, we worked hard to rebuild our connection. We made a conscious effort to prioritize our relationship, setting aside time for date nights and meaningful conversations. It wasn't always easy. Old habits die hard, and the shadow of betrayal still loomed large. There were moments when trust felt fragile, and the urge to retreat into old patterns was strong. Yet we persisted, reminding each other of our commitment to healing. I also took it upon myself to work on personal growth. I started journaling my thoughts and feelings, trying to process the pain and come to terms with everything that had happened. Writing became a therapeutic outlet, allowing me to reflect on my emotions and recognize the progress we were making. I also sought guidance from friends, leaning on their support and advice as I navigated this tumultuous period. As the months rolled on, I began to see glimpses of the woman I fell in love with. Lisa was making an effort to communicate openly, and I appreciated her honesty. We laughed together, reminisced about our happiest memories, and slowly rebuilt the foundation of trust that had been shattered. Every small victory felt monumental, a shared laugh, a compliment, or a moment of genuine connection. It was during one of our therapy sessions that I realized how far we had come. Dr. Harris praised our growth, noting how our willingness to confront the past had allowed us to start rebuilding our relationship. The fact that you both are here, working through this together, speaks volumes about your commitment to each other, she said, her voice warm and encouraging. It felt like a turning point. I could see the potential for our future together, and while scars remained, they were slowly healing. We both understood that it would take continuous effort to maintain the progress we had made. Trust would be rebuilt over time, and we were both committed to doing the work. Looking back, I realized that the greatest lesson I learned from this experience was the importance of communication. I had taken my marriage for granted, and it took a painful betrayal to awaken me to the reality of our struggles. Lisa and I both had to face our shortcomings and vulnerabilities, and it was through that honesty that we began to heal. As I sat down to write this, I felt a sense of gratitude for the journey we had taken together. It was painful and messy, but it had also been transformative. We had emerged from the darkness with a renewed understanding of each other, and while the road ahead was uncertain, I felt hopeful. We were in this together, ready to face whatever challenges life threw our way. In the end, I realized that love isn't just about the good times. It's about weathering the storms together and coming out stronger on the other side. It's about learning from mistakes, rebuilding trust, and making a commitment to grow alongside each other. If there's one piece of advice I would offer to anyone facing similar struggles, it's this: don't shy away from the difficult conversations. Embrace them, no matter how painful they may be. It might just lead you to a deeper understanding of yourselves and each other. And so, as I closed this chapter of my life, I felt ready to embrace the future. Whatever it held, I knew one thing for sure. I would fight for my marriage and for the woman I loved, because in the end, love is worth fighting for.